Hello, I'm Festu, exploring the Bible land. This is the fourth video about Caesarea. In this video, we will look at the port of Caesarea in detail, and we will explain the relationship this port with the Apostle Paul. I'm leaving the governor's building and heading for the hippodrome. Please imagine a chariot race while the wind is blowing from the Mediterranean Sea. I recommend to walk here with this image in mind. As you pass the hippodrome, you will meet the fortress and moat built by the Crusaders. Here again, you will be amazed by the timeless traces of history. It's great because it is remained on this place in silence while retaining the greatness of that time. Let's go into the Crusade fortress through the south gate. The landscape looks like a well-planned park. On the right side of the front, there are four large arches blocked by blue glass. Here, Herod the Great built a temple for Emperor Caesar. The well-planned park was the inner port of Caesarea. The foundation built higher than the surrounding to build the temple is called podium. The whole area, including these arches, was a podium for the temple. Inside the four arches that held the podium, there is the Caesarea Harbor Visiting Center. It has opened in June 2019, and it can be called the Caesarea Maritime Archaeology Museum. Personally, I highly recommend to visit this museum. This is a place where you can see for yourself how Caesarea appearance has changed over time. The stylish media displays are also excellent, but the short film that is screened inside is most amazing. I explained in my first video how Herod the Great regained trust in Caesar. This film shows that process and how much effort was put in to build this port. If you watch this film under the podium of Emperor Caesar's temple that was built 2000 years ago, you will feel the excitement of history. You will never forget. Why did Herod the Great need a new port? Here are some reasons in my opinion. First, to express loyalty to Caesar. Herod the Great wanted to express his loyalty and friendliness by building a new harbor named after Caesar Augustus. If he built a big new city like this, it's a symbol of his political power and his political influence. 2. A trading base to deal with the entire Roman Empire. With political influence, there must follow an economic influence. If he gets more political power, he can get more trade for the Roman Empire. So he needed a new and huge port to do this. In order to maintain political influence, there was a need for strong economic background. 3. A safe harbor to avoid winter storms. Mediterranean winter is famous for its stormy, especially with a lot of southern winds. He needed a stable port to withstand harsh winter conditions. 4. A port larger than the Pyrrhecum port of Athens. Herod the Great needed the world's largest port at his time. This is a good sample to reveal his ambitions. If he built a port larger than the port of Pyrrhecum, he gets the title that he built the largest port in the Roman Empire. It means the largest in all of the world. Therefore, he wanted to build also the deepest port in the world. 5. To be used as fortress in case of emergence. Caesarea is a city for Emperor Caesar, but in case of an emergence, he wanted to use it as refuge fortress. In this way, he built 3 fortresses, which could be used as refuge: Caesarea, Sebastia in the Old Testament of Samaria, and Geba Parashim, a city for retired cavalrymen in Galilee. His ambition was really great. To achieve his big dream, he needed to have economic power, but also technical support. At that time, the famous architect Marcus Vitruvius Pollio was in Rome. His book, 10 Books on Architecture, is still inherited today. The category that we know of Doric, Ionian, Corinthian style came from his book. Vitruvius devised a method of backing buildings in the sea using concrete techniques. He said the port of Caesarea was where it constructed by his method. Josephus described the detailed size of port in wall and antiquities. Herod the Great made a stone that is 15 meters long, 3 meters wide, and 2.7 meters high. And he built a port by putting it in the sea. Historians interpret this verse as a practice of the Vitruvius method. A large box-shaped wooden frame is built, and there is a mixture of small stone and volcanic ash. This is ancient concrete. He sunk it where he wanted it to be. By repeating this, he was able to build the desired undersea building. So, the movie in Caesarea National Park depicts the building process of Caesarea Port. In this method, we discussed it. Also, the port was very deep. As Josephus explains, it is said to be the deepest port of the entire Roman Empire. The depth was described as 20 orgia. This is about 36 meters deep. Therefore, large ships were able to enter this harbor. It's a port that's perfect compared to modern ports. But how many years it took to build such a huge port? I'm curious. We can know in Josephus' Antiquities, volume 15, verse 341. It is said that it has been under construction for 12 years. However, it is not enough to know when it started and when it finished. There is a verse that tells us this. Antiquities, volume 16, verse 136. In this verse, it is said that it took 10 years to build. And this verse gave us very important hint. It is said to have been completed in 28 years of Herod the Great on throne. This means it was finished in 1009 BCE. However, most historians prefer the 12-year construction period for various reasons. Then, the construction of the port of Caesarea began between 22 or 21 BCE, and it was finished 12 years later, 1009 BCE. Until now, we talked about the port of Caesarea. Now, let's look at the special biblical characters associated with Caesarea. First, Evangelist Philip. After visiting Caesarea, he continued to live there. He was one of the 7 deacons, and later the Apostle Paul stayed at his house when he returned from his 3rd missionary journey. 2. Roman centurion Cornelius. He invited Peter from Joppa, and his whole family was saved. Cornelius officially showed that Gentiles can be saved. 3. The Apostle Paul. There's so much relevance, so we will sort it out one by one. 1. The Apostle Paul sailed to Tarsus through Caesarea after the conversion. 2. In his second missionary journey, he stopped in Caesarea for a while. 3. In his third missionary journey, he stayed at the home of Philip, deacon in Caesarea. At this time, despite people told him not to go to Jerusalem, Paul went up to Jerusalem. 4. He was detained for 2 years in Caesarea. As explained in the last video, Paul may have been detained in the promontory palace built by Herod the Great in Caesarea. While here, Paul met with Governor Felix and his Jewish wife Drusilla to deliver his faith in Jesus. And when his successor, Governor Festus, came with King Agrippa and Berenice, Paul gave them the faith of Christ. 5. He was deported from Caesarea to Rome. After Paul was arrested in Jerusalem, he was a Roman citizen and was able to appeal to the Roman emperor. In fact, he could have been released without being detained if he had not appealed. However, because of the appeal, he was detained in Caesarea for 2 years and deported to Rome. Let's read the Bible verse for this event. Acts chapter 27, verse 1. When it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. In this verse, the boat was sailing from Caesarea. In fact, this is a very important event in Christian history, because the Apostle Paul went to Rome and martyred. The gospel spread throughout the world. Then, in its final saying, Caesarea is the gate, which from there the gospel spread into the world. In this area, every Christian was amazed. Herod the Great built the port of Caesarea by his own political ambitions, but in the end, all of this was a great reason for God's will. Because Herod the Great created such a wonderful port city, Philip Deacon settled here and lived. The centurion Cornelius family was saved here, making it the first fruit of the Gentiles. Furthermore, the Apostle Paul was detained here for 2 years and then went to Rome. Caesarea is a panorama of biblical events and Christian history. I hope that this panorama will be more clear throughout my channel Exploring the Bible Land. The following video will be the last of Caesarea. In the next video, I will explain the Roman-style aqueduct. Thank you for watching. We will see you next video.